I'm back in London now. I had a pre-operation with the doctors to explore having the defibrillator put in. The explanation of the defibrillator is basically if my heart were to stop at any stage, it would shock my heart back into action. And I always had the frame of reference for the Casino Royale scene with James Bond, where he's drunk something in the casino and he goes out to the car and the defibrillator pads that the actress has to start his heart again. One of the wires doesn't work properly. So there's this image of they get it working and it's fine. She has to fiddle with the wire. But basically that's what they wanted to put into me internally. Sometimes you can have a pacemaker, which would pace the heart, but I didn't need that at the time. The premise was they're concerned with the thickness of the heart that it might stop working. And therefore, based on all of the kind of research they've done and the clinic that they share, so my doctor at Barts has a clinic and they talk about, it's an amazing kind of way that the NHS works. So instead of one person being responsible for you, they take your case to the group of doctors and they will talk about what they think based on the results and ultimately come up with a recommendation. And this was their recommendation for me, to have a subcutaneous ICD put in. And again, the main two different types, one of them sits on top and the other one, which is a bit of a more dangerous procedure, but is more integrated into the heart. And so the thought was, based on my condition, the subcutaneous one should work. So it's basically like a battery pack. It's about 1.5 centimeters thick, maybe by about 5 by 5 centimeters. So it's a pretty significant thing that they were going to put in. And interestingly, it sits in my back. So it sits just behind my ribcage, and there's a wire that goes from the middle of my chest, just here, down, following almost the microphone wire, and then just there's an insertion here, and then it goes all the way to the left. And then it, from an invasive perspective, is pretty invasive, but at the same time, they're not integrating anything to the heart, so that it will stun it from the front of it, as opposed to being integrated. And so there's no pacing as well, so it's not able to pace. It literally is there. If it senses that the rhythm is doing something it shouldn't be doing, it will then shock it and start the heart again. So I had the pre-operation, everything seemed good to go, and it was then scheduled for the 20th of December, so again 2018, and my partner was going to fly in to stay in the hospital nearby. It was going to be done at Barts near Spitalfields. We got there, but on the morning of the operation, they said we need to delay it by a day, which was what it was, and we ended up going to the theatre, and instead of him staying in the hotel, we both stayed in the hotel. So it was this nice way that we were then ready for the hospital appointment in the morning the following day. So in a good way, perhaps things worked out. But I remember going in, getting ready in the pre-operation, and I also had if you remember, earlier on we were talking, they had something called a reveal device that was about the size of my baby finger, that was sitting monitoring me. So they were going to remove that at the same time as then putting this one in. And I remember taught that they sometimes put this in when you're awake, and I just did not want to be awake, that was for sure. But all the prep happened. My dad came in and my partner was there. I went into the operating theatre, and it's that weird feeling, again, for anyone that knows that's been under general anaesthetic, this count to 10, and by 3 you're out and you don't remember anything. I felt like I was in very safe, good hands and confident that it should all be fine. I just can't even get my head around how they know what they're doing. I'm just so pleased I'm not the first person they've had to do this on, and that many people have come before me. But yeah, the anxiety, ultimately, them cutting you open and putting a foreign object, something inside of you, but that's hopefully, if needed, going to save my life. And yeah, I was ready. I knew it needed to happen. The operation went fine. And then my partner was meant to fly out, I think, at 6 o'clock. So when I woke up, by this time, my mum and dad and other family were all there waiting for me. I remember waking up just thinking, is my partner still here? So can you go and get Michael? I just remember Michael explained to me that the nurse went in and was like, who's Michael? And he put up his hand, whatever, and he's come with me, and both my parents looking at each other, what about us? I was like, oops, in hindsight. Anyways, Michael comes in, and I'm on cocodamol and lots of drugs. Nothing hurt. I was very lucid and happy, and I'm a big fan of the Madagascar film, and I remember the nurse being called Alex. So I was calling him Mr. Alex. I was like, Mr. Alex! Michael's looking at me and my partner being like, what's going on? And he's doped. He's fine. Everything's fine.
Say hello.
Hello.
All good?
Yeah, tell them I can't feel anything.
He can't feel anything. Wave.
I look back at it, I say fondly, it was fine. He managed to get a later flight, which was fine, and he headed off quite quickly, and I saw my family. It was a big procedure. I left, I stayed at my dad's for about a week or so after the operation, and just quite sore, and yeah, the stitches just took some time, they dissolved. Getting used to it as well, sleeping on the right way and where it is. And there's still times if I sleep on a really hard mattress or something, it's quite uncomfortable, and needing to hug a different way around and all of those kind of things for navigating. But there are now 4 years in almost, and there are days that I don't even notice it at all. And every so often I've got a plastic card that says that I have it. So when I go through specifically at the airport for the scanning, you need to let them know. It was funny because I just flew through Israel recently, and they were like, I'm going to verify this card. How are you going to verify this card? Verify, okay. And they just asked me the questions. When did you have the operation? Who was your doctor? And very comprehensively, and also with the new, at the moment, if you're watching this in the future, the airport situation at the moment is a complete nightmare, and they don't have enough staff. Anyway, so I'm going through and I say to them, I've got this device, and they think it's external. So there's twice they've said, you need to come to the room and show us your device. And I'm like, no, it's inside of me. And they don't understand or get, and so we get into the investigation room or whatever. And I'm like, I'm happy to just lift up my t-shirt and show them. And anyway, so I do it. They're like, oh, it's inside. I'm like, yes, this is what I've been telling you. Anyway, generally it's absolutely fine. It's fortunately not gone off yet. And there is some apprehension, and I'll talk about that again more later on. I guess the anxiety of what happens if it goes off, and if I'm by myself, and it can do something called inappropriate shocks, where it thinks it needs to go off, but then it doesn't. And that's almost happened a few times, which again, I will talk about a bit later on. But the anxiety or concern that it might go off, ultimately it's got to be outweighed whether it might also save my life. And I think when the severity, and also I remember, especially if I'm meeting new people or doing things like, and if it comes up or I share it, I'm like, don't worry, you don't need to worry about me. If it stops, something will happen. And there is a peace of mind ultimately around that. That on the other side of that, also traveling by myself, I think there are also some concerns and anxiety, but that ultimately would be there with or without the device. I'm super grateful for all the doctors and the support, and I remember going to my first meetup for people with my condition, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy UK, put on a meetup, and there were, I think, 10 of us in the room. I think the cost of the operation and the device is over £50,000 or something unbelievable, and that we were all sitting there with all our devices, and it felt like this, wow, amazing community that, yeah, we're being really well looked after and some of the best treatment in the world, and grateful that that's also on the other side of being like, oh, I'm not sure if I want it, actually to be really grateful that it is an option and it is available, and that I should embrace that. And so it took a bit of time to get there, but I'm so grateful that I have it and got the support that I needed. Thanks for watching. Feel free to check out the British Heart Foundation, Cardiomyopathy UK and Save 9 Lives for more information. Why not comment on the video, tell me what you think or ask a question, and subscribe to the channel to continue to follow my journey.